All right, just warming up here a little bit, everybody. We get started here in just a second. Just good morning, good morning. I've got my JC video on. Let's see if it captures a recording here. Come on, machine. Darn it. All right. Cool. We on time, guys? Awesome. Well, good morning. Martin Chuck here. Welcome to Modern Golf with Martin Chuck. And it's pretty modern. You know, I am in my garage here with my station, and this episode is all about iron strikes. So I'm really looking forward to helping you get organized with your iron strikes. Now, I'm going to have my tech guy walking through the screen. Go ahead, dude. It's okay. It's all good. This is all good in the hood here. This is high tech. Steve in the background getting my questions up on the screen, so when you guys fire up the questions, I can look at my screen and I can answer them. So it's awesome to be here with you guys. I hope you're enjoying wherever you are, wherever the weather is, I hope you are out and about enjoying yourself. And man, these are some crazy times, you know. So I don't know what to tell you, but we can all have golf together, right? We can enjoy squishing Whitey here crisply with nice iron shots, and that's what today's episode is all about, hitting really good iron shots. It's kind of interesting. I get people come to my golf school all the time, and you know, the driver is something that they feel they can manage okay. You know, of course, the driver's sitting up there a couple inches off the ground that we can go ahead and give it a bit of a hit. And we don't have to have this relationship club face, ball, turf. And the club face, ball, turf kind of negotiation is the tricky one for many of you. You know, the lovely Stacy Chuck is probably still cuddled up in bed here having, you know, sawing logs and dreaming of hitting crisp iron shots. And she's doing really well in her golf game. She shot a 94 not too long ago, so she's on the cusp of, she shot a 41 on the back nine last week, so she's starting to get it. Her tee ball is pretty good. And like I said, when the ball is elevated, she can give it a whack. What she needs to get a little practice time in, but I'm going to kind of go through this episode and talking about this thing right here, okay? You've got the head, the face, and the shaft. And I want you to understand those three pieces and how we can get this thing traveling through this relationship with a golf ball nicely. So I'm going to click over to Foresight here. We're going to hit a shot, and let's talk about this. So I've got a 7 iron, okay? And I'm going to hit one out there, and it'll probably fly 160 yards, give or take. But let's see what happens when I hit this shot and the relationship as we kind of go through impact. We'll talk about it. So that was a pretty good strike right there. And this ball's, I mean, I wish I hit them all that straight, right? So here's a good shot, about 160, a little bit to the left of my target line. Yay for me, right? It's kind of going over that. If I hit them all that straight, maybe I wouldn't do a morning show. But this is, let's pop up to the next screen right there. On the lower right, you see that one that says impact, right? Pretty solid impact. But you'll notice what I wanted to show you there, you guys, is that club traveled through the impact area with the grooves parallel to the ground, right? So here's the ground. That club at its 87 miles an hour club head speed, when it clipped the golf ball, the grooves weren't toe down, the grooves weren't toe up, they were traveling parallel to the horizon. When a club travels parallel to the horizon, you have the best chance of hitting it somewhere out the middle of the face. Think about it. If the toe's way down, can you really get this golf club sweetly onto the golf ball if the handle's high? You can't, because the club's in an awkward spot. Now, if we look at these three pieces, the face, the head, and the shaft, and talk through this and how the body relates, and I'll get to some questions here soon, but how the body relates, I think you can start to develop a pretty functional low point. Use your physicality and speed nicely to hit it far enough for, you know, everybody's different. I wish I was way faster, but I'm not. I have my speed's decent. Some of the young kids I teach, unbelievably fast, okay? And centeredness of strike. So we're going to focus on those things. You saw on that Foresight club face, club head diagram that was a pretty good strike. Reasonably straight, had good power, came out the center of the face. So the elements, let's get to some of these things that we have to get to hit a good shot. Ball location, you guys. I'm a big fan. I've been really preaching walk-in routine lately. So let me go to let's go to a split screen here. Face on down the line, there we go. So face on down the line, you've got two views of Martin Chuck there. You got the down the line view and the face on view. And when I walk into a shot, I always start kind of from behind this golf ball. As I walk in, I've been kind of simplifying things, calling it 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning that I'm too far away from my golf ball right now. Here's my 0. This is kind of home base. This is where I get started. My 1 is when I step my trail foot up to have this relationship, this dimension that makes sense for me to put my hands on the club. Let me get my left hand on properly. For me to get my, so number 0, here's right foot forward, number 1. Number 2, club face and hands. Number 3, my lead foot moves to my target side for ball location, and then my trail foot drops back. And that gives me the golf ball center left in my stance, okay? We don't really want the golf ball too far forward in our stance, and we don't want it too far back in our stance. I know some of you think, well, Martin, I chunk it all the time. Don't I want to move it back to help me get the golf ball first? To a tiny degree, you can do that, but if you do it excessively, you're going to run into some problems. So let's go through this routine, ball location, touch point control, so you can start to understand how the shaft plays a role, how the face plays a role, and how the head plays a role. So routine pieces. Let's go back to face on. In this face on setting, as I kind of walk into my golf shot here, I'm on my 0. I go to my 1. I have my 2. Here's my 3, and here's my 4. So you want to hit great iron shots. You have to kind of understand that process. Every good striker has got a rhythm of how they set into a golf ball, and you need that as well. Because think about it. The athletic event of golf is 1 second, 1.2 seconds, okay? You're going to hit 40, 45 full shots, maybe 36 full shots, right? So if you do that, you're really only being athletic swinging a golf club for 45 seconds, a minute tops during your entire round of golf. Most of the golf you play is about how to hit that athletic event, how to get into that athletic event properly so that you have success moving this tool properly. So walking into the shot again, let's kind of knock this out. We're walking in. We always want to stand back here and we want to visualize, we want to make a good choice on what club we're going to use. Hopefully you know how far your shots carry. Maybe you can get on a launch monitor sometimes and actually be truthful about what you carry a golf ball. I'm not interested in total distance with an iron shot. I'm interested in what you carry it. So I'm going to grab, let me grab a T-square here to help with this. You guys are going to see a little bit more clearly when I use this. And we use this with most every lesson. I mean, when you come to the golf school, you will see these down in front of everybody because I want people to have the ability to walk into a shot and start to train their eyes to have this relationship of ball location and target. So ball location is the skinny little stick that goes between my feet. Obviously, target line is the red and white barber pole. So when you walk into this, we're going to walk in. We've kind of got our 0, our baseline. We're going 1, club face and hands 2, left foot for ball location 3, right foot goes back for stance width. And you'll notice this little wiggle waggle right here. It's called a waggle. Well, that's an event that helps free things up. And from here, a lot of stuff has to go on to really hit crisp shots. So let's get into what we need to do. Now, any questions you want to fire up at me, feel free. But I want to talk about some of the must-haves you need in order to hit crisp shots. The golf club travels on a circle, right? And a circle can be more elliptical. It can be an argument. Some good teachers say, man, it's a bit of an ellipse. There's a bit of a flat spot. I totally get it. I absolutely agree that there's a flat spot. But let's hit a little shot here, go through this. I'm going to go up to, oh, got foresight on there. Great. My guys are ahead of me. Thank you, fellas. Let's hit a little shot. You know, right off the face, I felt it was a mild miss hit. The ball went a little track to the right. Not too bad. Probably a little short. Well, distance wasn't too bad. So as I'm hitting that little shot, you know, as it goes to its club delivery to, oh, didn't go to the club delivery. Let's go back to, let's hit one more shot. And I want you guys to look at this screen in the bottom right corner as foresight kind of rolls through these things. To again, take a look at something. There's a consistent element we're going to help you work through today. Okay, reasonable strike, a little to the right. Now when this pops up here, let's go to, there we go, we'll go to the foresight screen, perfect. This will just take a second as it kind of tracks down there. Decent shot, little heel. So as this kind of populates up, you'll see on the right bottom, look at the right bottom, that was a little heely shot, that little red dot right there. Fractional skinny, but look again at that number. That horizon number, meaning that you could see that golf, I know it's only on there for a blink, but this golf club isn't coming in with the shaft way low, where the grooves are slanted. It's not coming in with the shaft way high. So when the shaft comes in really high, when it comes in this situation where things get really steep, you're going to miss the golf ball. So why do we have that steep delivery, you guys? And this is a big, big deal on how to have great low point control. So I want you to understand that. Getting started for crisp iron shots. Every good player, obviously balances their weight between their 2 feet. You call it 50-50, you can call it 55-45. Most players at address have a relationship where their weight is a little bit biased on their lead side. So when I'm at address right here, I'm going to call my weight 55 on my left side, 45 on my right side. Why would that be the case? Because I've got the opportunity now to have this little, since I have a bit more weight on my lead side, I can kind of have a sense of push into my trail side, and that's a little dynamic run up into a backswing. Weight's left, so it can dynamically run up into the right side. It runs up into the right side. Now I have this sense that I can land here again. There's some great videos in how pelvises work in golf, what our pelvis is doing. And people say, Martin, is it different for a driver? And I say, yeah, it is different for a driver. Iron shots, we want to touch the ball, brush the grass. And I know that's what you desire out there, crisp contact. And that's what our morning session here is about. Modern Golf Today with Martin Chuck is all about crisp contact. And what I want you guys to do and gals to do out there, take a golf club, hold it against your waist right here. And what I want you to feel is go ahead and put a little bit more of your weight on your lead side. And then from there, go ahead and we're going to have that sense of run up and rotation to where you're really going to have this nice turn, this nice deep turn of this golf club to where you can feel as though you get 35, 45 degrees of turn on the backswing there, where you can get the hips turned. Then from here, once it's turned, go ahead and feel like you can keep it turned and let yourself land onto your left foot. So this is a very simple drill for you to do. Take your club, put it right in your hip hinge right here, get it settled nicely in there, rotate into a backswing. While it's rotated, allow yourself to resettle onto that lead side. That's a nice little magic move right there. Excuse me while I turn away from the camera for a second so you see the booty view of this, right? So this is a nice deep hip turn. The club is still turned. Here I'm resettling myself onto my lead side. That's a big, big deal right there, because when you can resettle yourself, the pelvis is actually a little bit more left. Now when I hit this shot, I'll hit a, let's go face on down the line, you guys. Get a golf ball here, face on down the line, good. We got foresight up, perfect. Let's hit a little shot. Okay, 50-50. I feel as though, 55-45 bias to my left side. Here's my run-up move, my resettling move, and watch my body relative to this skinny white stick as I get to my finish, okay? So let's see if I can really kind of hit one, not in the heel a little bit. My morning warm-up shots here. So there's a nice crispy strike. That should be tracking pretty good. And it's a nice one, yay for me, right? Good shot, but the point is, as I hit that crisply, if I was to stay in my finish for a moment longer, and you look in the face-on view, you can see in the face-on view right here that my whole body is basically rotated into this left foot quadrant here of this golfer's toolbox. We've got our target line, we've got our ball line. All too often with the folks that don't hit crispy iron shots, there's too much of a situation where they hang back. Now all of a sudden they really can't get this shaft leaning to collect the golf ball before it brushes the mat in rotation. Now I've got a few simple little drills for you to do. If those of you out there, you've been following me for a while, you know what? If you practice on mats, a towel is a good friend. And here's my dirty old golf towel. I'm just going to lay this towel down. And I'm going to give this just a couple of inches right here behind my golf ball. So I've got the seam of the towel I've got the golf ball location. Here's what I want you guys to do and gals to do out there. Give yourself a reasonable measure. Get this golf ball, I'd say that's a span of about 4 inches right there. Give yourself a chance to have an opportunity for this club to track down as you resettle yourself and start to unwind yourself, okay? Get your hands on there, walk into your routine, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And before you start hitting really hard shots, let's go ahead and have that sense that we can keep our structure, which means get your arms comfortably long, get the club a little bit off the ground. I say that every time, and I know so many people want to just kind of be super cozy and get a bendy arms and be all relaxed. The problem with this, people, is you don't have a reliable radius, okay? I want you to build feel through mechanics. I'll say it again. You're building feel through mechanics. You'll be mechanized, it'll feel awkward for a while, but once you do this for a while, once you feel your arms are structured on top of your body, once you feel you've got this comfortably long radius, 2 arms to your, obviously meeting at the hands, down the shaft to the club head, taking that measure, getting that off the ground. Now as we hit these little shots, being particular to rotate, relocate, and maintain structure. And I know a lot of you, when you hit these little shots, you go to the range, it's not that sexy to stand there and hit these little learning speed, these little half shots, but it's so important for your brain to start to feel and organize. And you can't just heave-ho at your full speed. You've got to break things down. You've got to slow things down. You've got to be able to say, okay, well, you know what? I can mindfully kind of go through this routine, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Clubs off the ground, and let's see, oh, darn it, hit the towel. All right, let's reset, let's do it again. Because you have to know what's right, you have to know what's wrong, and you have to know how to build from that point. Now that crisp little strike, the first one, not the second, because the second one, obviously I just hit my towel because my weight didn't relocate as I collected the golf ball on my way to my semi follow through right here. Let's hit another one. Get your good hands on there. Don't even get me started about grips, because obviously it's a huge part of how you impose your will on the golf club. It's a big, big deal. 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Clubs off the ground. Let's go ahead and miss this towel. If you want, go ahead and put your radius in. Clubs off the ground. Feel how you can kind of crisply hit a little shot out there. Guys, let's go to foresight. Show the viewers what this shot looks like, the distance it's traveling, so they get an idea about this. Clubs in my hands. This drill is a fantastic, I call it the cornerstone drill, okay? We've got our trail foot. Let's get ourselves organized. Those are 50-yard carries is basically all those are. And this is a 7-iron, okay? This is training speed. Now I can speed this up actually, but obviously we're going to hit this little shot. Rotated, my booty is past my ball line right here, okay? So there's another one that was, you know, about the same distance here. My buns are under me, I'm rotated to the target. My structure, my arms is still intact. You'll notice when I hit these shots, okay? So let's see, toes up a little bit, draw bias, 51 miles an hour club head speed, fine. I'm not trying to hit these very hard. Key bits to this, you guys, let's go face on. Key bits to this is we are collecting this golf ball. We don't want any of this. We don't want this pull-in elbow separation. We want to feel like we can keep our arms as comfortably long as we can. In order to do that, okay, if I don't start to rotate and push myself away from the ground, I can't keep my arms as long as they can, right? Now notice how my body's back, my buns are under me. I'm not trying to reach for the screen. My arms are settled into my body, okay? They're long, but they're settled into me. And notice here's my hip hinge, here's my rotation. My booty gets from its hip hinge of address to underneath me. My arms are still attached. Now if I was to hit a hard one, speed might continue with the club head, and then it's going to exhaust itself and relax. So starting to build speed, once you can do a few of these at say 50 miles an hour, just itty bitty chip shots. It doesn't take much to swing a 7-iron 50 miles an hour. Let's add a little bit more speed to this. Let's go for, say, 3/4 speed. So in my situation, say 70 miles an hour. And that's probably a little closer to 80. I haven't looked yet, but I'm going to hold my finish. I hit a nice little shot. It was 82 miles an hour. So the funny thing about that is, guys, that wasn't me trying to smash one. I had almost my top speed with a 7-iron. Top speed with a 7-iron for me might be 88, 89. And that was a little 3/4 shot where it was a very centered, lovely strike. My path was organized inside out 1.5, down a couple of degrees. You saw that I missed the towel right there. These are all elements of a crisp strike. Now, I want to get into a little bit of secret sauce with you guys here, okay? A little bit of secret sauce. And you go, okay, cool, Martin, that's why I'm here. The tricky thing, really, really tricky thing to understand, and this is so hard to teach, so I need you to kind of turn on your, just kind of lay back, sip another cup of coffee, open up your mind to this. Take a look at my left hand right now. My left hand is not flat, okay? My left hand is subtly bent back. My left hand is subtly bent back, and my wrist is vertical. So that golf club is vertical, my wrist is vertical. My wrist isn't turned, okay? You can play golf with a turn wrist, but my preference is a vertical wrist when you were starting to develop your game. So when I put my left wrist on, and I take great care to do this, and I have all my life because my coach was a stickler about this, there's a vertical wrist, and it's bent back at address. Now, what do you notice about if I come to this kind of impact relationship? The handle is a little bit forward. The club head's a little bit back, okay? So when you set yourself up for success, people, and you understand this relationship, go ahead and do that. When you look down, and you look down at your left hand, it's going to feel, or lead hand, it's going to feel really weird because in order to bend something, you need a muscle to bend it. If I want to bend my elbow, I need a bicep. If I want to bend my wrist, I need a forearm muscle to do it. That's going to feel awkward to many of you because you've never done it before. All too often, people set the club down, comfortably put their hands on it. They probably interlock because your Uncle Al told you to do that, right? And you've got this mess of hands on the club and you feel like, hey, I'm ready to go. The problem is it doesn't really put you in a position to get your hands organized. I want to kind of visit, I'm going to go back to the match here for a second. I want to talk to you about Tom Brady, right? Now, Tom Brady is obviously one of the best professional athletes, period. Peyton Manning played great. Tom Brady had a really rough start. There was a lot of discussion in the golf nerd forums that I read about, man, Tom Brady's no 8 handicap. Let me tell you what, Tom Brady's an 8 handicap. The guy's got some skills. Now, I would like to see, I tell you, if I played with Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, and whoever, with the cameras on, I may manage myself because guess what? That was something I was sort of used to doing in my life, putting myself out there, not too worried about missing, okay? Now, Tom Brady, when he says hot, it's a different set of circumstances than when you're standing there over a golf ball. But in Tom Brady's case, circling back to this discussion on hands, I looked at his swing. I loved his golf swing. Now, every ball he hit, for the most part, went right of Rush Limbaugh. Okay, the face was delivered open and went way over to the right. And I'm looking at this awesome walking routine, great waggle. I mean, he took a little too long over the golf ball, in my opinion. But what I looked at as a coach, I looked at a very, very weak left hand, a hand kind of on the grip out of comfort. And there is a matchup for this, but it's a tricky matchup, okay? The tricky matchup is just to really kind of learn how to bow your left wrist. Well, bowing your left wrist isn't too fun for most people because there's another muscular event on the other side of your forearm. I'd way rather pre-stress my forearm with a bent back lead wrist that's going to go into a flat condition than have a comfy one at address, okay, that has to go into one where I've got to really kind of flex my, the interior forearm muscles right here. And I can't tell you what they're called. There's something with some Latin name, okay? But let's go ahead and get our good hands on there with a bent lead wrist. So when you change direction, you guys, you have the ability for the club head, the rhythm and weight of this 3-component system, the face, the head, the shaft, to help you take this bent condition, okay, secret sauce here, right, and let it flatten because flat's comfortable. Let's be a little uncomfortable at address So the dynamics of our swing, the change in direction, Sir Isaac Newton says something in motion is going to stay in motion. That's all I know, right? But if it's in motion and we go the other way, it's resisting changing direction. That is lag. When this golf club is lagging, it should lag into something comfortable. That's a flatter wrist condition. So start off a little bit uncomfortable. This is what people hate. They come to the golf school and they're all excited, and I look at their grip and I go, oh. And then, changing your grip, they always say change your grip and lose a friend. But if I can create a very good argument for why your grip should be changed, and in a golf school scene it's 2-3 days, guess what? That's enough time to kind of feel comfortable with this change. You'll get yourself from feeling pre-stressed, and I like the word pre-stressed, and stress isn't a bad word when I say it in a golfing relationship, because I want you to have this situation where you can go from an address position that's pre-stressed. These outer muscles here on my forearm are a little stressed to have this be a little bit bent back. And then in this change of direction here as I hit one, the dynamics of that event right there, that's what lets this wrist condition kind of bend back, and I can collect the golf ball with that ever important forward shaft lean. So that was a nicely struck shot, 170 yards, 7-iron. I mean, that's a full one for me when I'm hitting it, 160 something carry. And you'll notice the bottom right there that's just obscured a little bit. That is my club, again, being delivered like really nicely through impact, okay? Really nicely, not toe down, not heel down. So let's talk about kind of the on-plane delivery of a golf club and why everybody messes it up. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I'm looking into my camera, but I'm really talking to you. You know who you are, right? You come over the top. You don't have a reliable delivery condition. Well, let's talk about being a little bit more reliable. You're like, Martin, I've been watching you for years, and maybe there's some newbies out there watching me going, who's this crazy guy? Well, the reality is we always do things out of comfort, okay? We want to hit it far. We take on risk. That risk really, we got to consider not having it. Now, let me explain why. There's some merits in, quote, swinging easy, okay? I don't want you to swing easy. I want you to smash it. But I want you to be organized so that when you do swing fast, you're not taking so much risk that you can't get the golf ball coming out of the middle of the face with the design intended on the golf club, okay? One of my gizmos, let's talk about it for a second. Walk off screen here, excuse me. I'm gonna grab is the smart ball. Since there's been coaches coaching golf, there's been people putting stuff between forearms. One that I made was the smart ball because I want people to kind of learn how to get organized and smash it, right? So getting organized and smashing it. Earlier in this video, I talked about a little bit about like the half-speed 7-irons to kind of feel what it's like to kind of move yourself through space. Well, now as we get into being on plane, let's talk about this. I'm going to put a smart ball on here for a second, and we'll talk about the trail arm behavior. Let's go down the line, guys, and let's look at this and how this trail arm works. So as I've got the smart ball in here, because I do want you smashing, I want you really mashing 7-irons, you'll notice as I kind of go into my backswing, I've got my structure. As I work into my backswing here, my trail arm isn't going behind me. I'm not letting go of the ball, and I'm not holding the ball very tight either. But you'll notice if I start to let my trail arm go behind me, one, the ball drops out, and the more my elbow goes behind me, the more I'm going to tend to pitch the shaft, what's called across the line, and I'm going to take on unnecessary risk by bending my wrist. Unnecessary risk, bending the wrist, because once these separate, all I'm going to do is introduce wrist conditions. I don't want to introduce wrist conditions. I want to have as peaceful, passive hands as I can. So let me hit a little 7-iron with a smart ball. Now this will drop out. It'll drop out like post-impact over here when my arms separate. But I really want to feel, I feel like my mic's coming down here. Hang on, just gonna make sure that doesn't fall. Give myself a little bit of slack. There we go. All right, so hitting the smart ball. Now this I can almost get up to speed. Let's see how we do. Ball's in there in place, nice big turn. Getting a little run up into the backswing. Okay, reasonable, a little bit of a healer. Ball went to the left. So a little miss hit, not gonna lie there. Now, as I'm developing that backswing, you know, can I make a nice full turn without my trail arm kind of getting the shaft pitched around? And when you use something like this, like the Tour Striker Smart Ball or the Impact Ball was a great product that people had on the market for a long time. I just found it a little too heavy. That's why I made this one. And I was really tired of kind of picking up the Impact Ball. Let's go ahead and hit another shot. There's a pretty good strike. Looks like it's down my target line. I like that. So reasonable speed, that's almost full speed, okay? 86.5 miles an hour. That is pretty much my carry, 160, okay, a little bit short. And that's using something that's kind of helping me build awareness. So there's a centered hit out the middle of the face with a club that's parallel, you know, when it passes through the ground. So that's a pretty good strike there. So what happens with most of you guys and gals out there? In an effort for freedom, in an effort for degrees of freedom of the body, we lose these relationships. We take the club back, and it feels really nice to do this because boy, oh boy, do I have the club's mass, do I have the weight of that thing in a nice spot back there, it feels great. The problem is we have to think about the three elements of the club, not just two of them. So when I take the club and I go back and I take it and I kind of let everything fold up and I feel that weight, I've got the club head's weight back there, that's great. I've got the shaft back there, that's great. But guess what? I don't have any relationship for a face that's going to be reliable down at the bottom. So I've got two of the three, but I really need to understand three of the three in order to have reliable, predictable ball flight, okay? So you can take on the risk, but if you risk, it's like saying, okay, I'm just gonna roll the dice. Maybe I'm gonna hit 1 7-iron really nicely. Maybe I'm gonna chunk 3 in a row. Maybe I'm gonna miss way left of the green, way right of the green, all these crazy misses. But if you can start to organize the three critical elements of the club, the shaft pitch, the weight of the club head itself, and the face, now you're cooking. So let's talk a little bit more about the shaft pitch or the plane. Some people have heard it of, you know, the plane of the swing. I can get rid of my towel now. Let's get that out of here. I think I ought to throw that in the wash. But anyway, let's talk about shaft pitch and the plane of a golf swing. You know, the club's designed, it comes on an angle away from the ball toward us. Let's give a down the line on this, you guys. So since golf's a side-on game, we set up to this game. It's a, you know, generally an inclined circle where our job is to swing this thing around us, right, on this inclined plane and hopefully get back to the golf ball. If we do a bunch of things, say, you know, overroll early, separate the elbows, do all these funky things, it's actually a miracle if we can get this club organized with that speed and get back onto a golf ball. So again, it's really kind of taking out some of these risk factors to help us have more of a higher reliability getting this club on the ball, right? So get organized, have this sense of structure as we develop this backswing. Notice my right arm is bent a little bit and it's not overbent. My trail wrist, my right wrist is bent, it's not overbent. I am not trying to artificially hinge the golf club, you guys. My old coach, George Knudsen, used to always talk about passive hands. Once you put your hands on the golf club, he felt as though you're never really doing any manual manipulation of the hands. He said once the trail arm starts to bend, the trail wrist is going to bend commensurate to it. And we want to not overbend that trail arm. If we can not overbend that trail arm and have a deep turn, now we're taking out all these unnecessary risky elements that don't really work on the way back to a golf ball. So if you take and you understand the role of this trail arm as we develop a backswing, it doesn't overbend, the wrist doesn't hinge awkwardly, it's kind of a passive event. Now you get to the top, and you've heard this before maybe if you're a golf junkie like me, the tray position where the trail wrist is bent back, the trail arm has some bend in it, it's not overbent. Don't let those lovely chilled beers fall off that tray. Okay, and then from here you've got a reliable place with which to let your weight resettle under your lead side, unwind yourself, collect the golf ball, let that energy kind of take and exhaust itself into a finish. Now, let's talk about compression, you guys. Let's talk about, you know, how do you maximize your distance on your irons, right? So a lot of people want to understand, you know, Martin, you know, I hit these irons, they kind of go high, they don't go very far. And I see that all the time. And typically what I see when people don't have that, let me hit one with, let me show you some, I'll show you my, well, you saw my usual shots, 87, 88 miles an hour on a 7-iron swing. They fly about 160. Let's go to foresight and let me show you a scoopy one where the speed's about the same, and so we'll see what this golf ball does. Okay, so that was a pretty reasonable hit, I gotta be honest, right? But the carry is only gonna be 144. The trajectory of that is much, so the speed's pretty good. Okay, the hit was solid, but guess what? I just wound up 10 yards short. I am in the pond, not very good. Okay, so the same kind of speed, and it was a reasonably centered strike as well. So 83.3 miles an hour, not quite the speed I'm looking for, but that was decent speed. But the thing was, I purposely kind of stalled out my hands, hit the golf ball with more of a vertical shaft. You see, the clubs are designed with loft on them, guys, obviously, and we have 14 of them in the bag. You've got a putter that's got loft on it. It might have 2 or 3 degrees to launch the ball out of just the little grassy cup it's sitting in on the putting green. Believe me, putters have loft just to pop the ball just fractionally off the ground so it can start rolling better. And then you have the driver. The driver's got 9 or 10 degrees. That club is meant to hit pretty close to the equator of a golf ball, a little bit low, but it's the most forceful strike. Then you've got a series of clubs, 3 wood on down to the lob wedge, where progressively you get the addition of loft. And those are designed to hit slightly lower on the golf ball to get the ball to launch a little bit differently with more spin. So the more loft you have hitting the golf ball, the more friction you have that creates backspin. That's why, you know, lob wedges or sand wedges spin more than, say, a 5-iron. A good striker hitting a 5-iron might get 4,500 RPMs of spin. That same striker hitting a lob wedge might get 11,000 RPMs of spin. That's why that lob wedge, in fact, a lot of high-level players have to be careful. If they hit a really hard lob wedge or sand wedge into a green, it can hit the green and rip right back toward them. I know most of you don't have that problem because you're not really hitting the ball first crisply out the middle of the face. So getting on that theme of compressing a golf shot, you know, this event of the weight of the club head, again, we talked about this lead wrist right here and how it's pre-stressed bent back and how to the weight of the golf club, this is, I'm not moving this club head right now. The rhythm of my body is. I could stand here and manually do this with a wrist. Okay, I'm strong enough to do that. Or I could let this freely, rhythmically do this. Now I know you're looking at this going, man, I kind of see the same things. But trust me, when I'm doing it this way, I'm just kind of doing it with man-hand strength, just kind of moving the club back and forth. Ladies, you can do this too, right? Now, as I hold this and I feel like my body can do this, now this is more of a serpentining event of the weight of the golf club. And as the club's going back one way, my body starts going the other way. And that's a stress. That weight is putting stress on my hands. That stress is called lag in the golf vernacular. And as my body unwinds this, you can see that the delivery of the shaft would be forward leaning of where it started, right? So you want to understand that you're not delivering the golf club to the same place you start. You know, in the golfing machine, Homer Kelly, Ben Doyle, Homer Kelly wrote the book, Ben Doyle was the first authorized instructor. One of the things that he said was the biggest illusion in golf is the golfer feeling that they have to line up the shaft visually, the eyes, the hands, the shaft, the ball, this relationship back to the ball. Many people feel like, you know, if I start here and I just kind of return back to here, I'm going to be pretty good. Well, you might get decent, okay, but you're going to run the risk of hitting the ground before you hit the ball a lot. You're also going to hit the golf ball with your speed kind of fluffy and too high. We don't want that. We want to understand that this weight of the club doesn't want to go back when we make a backswing, and it doesn't want to go forward when we make a downswing. So it gets into a lagging condition. And if we can actually learn to have that sense and get to a golf ball in that lagging condition, you've got mild forward shaft lean right there. And what that does is it takes the loft on this 7-iron and it strengthens it 10 or 12 degrees. So the speed applied with stronger loft makes the golf ball go farther and gives you a little insurance at impact, because now you've got the kind of the handle ahead of the golf ball a little bit, and in that situation, that's a bit of a downward strike, and we want that little bit of a downward strike. I'm not purposely trying to hit down on it. I'm setting my hands up, getting organized in my 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the routine of it all, in order to have a little bit more insurance and sense of how the weight of the club plays against my hands. So you'll say, well, you know, Martin, I thought you were supposed to have softness in your hands. Aren't you supposed to feel like your arms are kind of spaghetti? I'd say, you know, yeah. It's once you train in a feeling and you get comfortable, once again I said, you're going to build feel through mechanics, not mechanics through feel, right? You'll become more familiar with how to get organized nicely on the golf club. And from here, you might feel a little mechanical, but you're going to have nice certainty about how this club kind of serpentines down here. I've got a question coming in. I'll look forward to helping you with that. So here's this club head in this kind of serpentine manner of structure. And as I move this guy, right, my hands are very, very peaceful. Let me see if I can really just absolutely murder one here. I'm super relaxed. I'm structured my arms because you can see some muscles popping here, right? It feels really relaxed to me. My wrists are super oily. That's why I keep the club off the ground to help in that oiliness. And let's see if I can absolutely tater a 7-iron on here. Maybe I got to carry it 172. That's a big one for me. And that's about all I got right there. So that was a good strike. So hopefully it's going to fly this bulkhead and not go in the pond. Oh, let's take a look. 172. Oh man, that might have landed right on that wooden thing there and bounced in the lake, and the fans go, ooh, ah, and I say, is that not why you're here? Okay, so that was my little play on it. But that was a very centered strike, lots of speed, 91-mile-an-hour 7-iron. That's about as fast as I could hit it, okay, or as hard as I could hit it. And to hit it that hard, there was a softness there. Question coming in, mechanics, plane mate style finish in the backswing. Okay, so the plane mate, you know, I'm telling you, this thing has been, I hate, you know, I'm a nice Canadian kid, grew up in Canada, and I don't really like to boast a lot, but I'm going to boast a little bit. Like yesterday, I had this great guy came in from Tampa, and his swing was, he was a decent golfer. He was kind of at wit's end. He was in a, let me kind of show you what we were talking about here. Pardon me while I kind of walk off screen for a second here. The fella was, he loved golf. His golf game was a disaster. He was in a situation where, you know, Martin, I've watched all your videos. And I thought to myself, man, I must not be a very good communicator. Because guess what? What we look at, what we perceive is really hard to internalize, right? And so the first thing I did when I saw the guy, and he'd come out to see me a few years ago, and we worked on stuff then, and then of course, when you get away from a coach, and that's why tour players, they take the most coaching. They got the most coaches, right? Tour players have tons of coaching hours. I thought, I've got to give this guy his own awarenesses. He's got to kind of build in the feels. And the beauty of resistance training, and that's really what the plane mate is. It's a resistance trainer, right? I'm going to put this on. This goes on over my belt. This belt buckle is on top of my belt buckle. And if you know you're watching this, you're probably pretty familiar with this kind of thing. And this is on super tight. And so this belt allows me to connect some fitness bands to it. So I've got this one fitness band that's going to clip on the rail. And I've got a club connector here. And let me kind of walk you through some of the structure. Some of the things that were game-changing for this fella. And, you know, it really kind of warms me up when somebody gets it. You know, so I've got the club connector on here. And this one, we're going to put the long band on, pop this guy on. This is an old prototype clip here. Let's get this clip on, there we go. And right now when you see this, you go, Martin, what do you have there? Well, I've got this bit of tension that's going to help me do a couple of things. If I really relax my arm, look where my arm is. It's bent into my side. Now I've got a couple of pounds of tension in order to straighten my arm. Well, this fella needed that, because he was one of those ones that he didn't really realize he was all super cozy. You know, everybody tells me to be comfortable at a dress. Well, yeah, but you have to have certain pieces of structure in place. You got to have some mechanics. The spokes on the wheel all have to be the right length. The wheels are going to wobble around. Well, he needed some spokes. He needed to kind of put in a little bit of this structure, and on both sides of things. So We could do a little golf ball recon here. The trickiest thing with the playmate is just getting the golf ball in the right spot. But once this guy started to realize that, man, I don't have any structure in my swing. You know, I'm playing golf. I'm a lost golfer. I got no structure, right? So once this guy started to put this structure in, all they really did was take him from address to semi-follow through a bunch of times. You know, he did this kind of behavior. Because if you can do this, golfers, guess what? There's a sequence of rotating with the golf club that's passing you by. Now, you've got this force working back away from you. Therefore, you have to push away from it, right? Now your brain has got some mild confusion. In that mild confusion, beautiful things happen, okay? Because you're not used to these stresses. It's not something you are used to. Therefore, your brain goes, well, okay, I know what my intent is. My intent is to hit a little golf shot. So I'll hit this little guy out there about 100 yards, okay? Watch this shot as I'm set up to hit it. I've got my structure in place on both sides of the ball. You know, the ball is going to go down there. Let's see what, yeah, one little to the right. Whoop-de-doo, right? So it went 122, so a little longer than I thought. But the point is, when I had this fella in this gizmo, right? And he, instead of this kind of sloppy, like he was swinging the golf club. I guess that's what you'd call it. It was some kind of event. And I'm thinking, I said, oh man, I don't know where we got off track. But here's the thing, when you have a coach, right? And I told him, I go, man, I saw you 3 years ago, okay? You left me. You had this online platform you can use, because my students get this platform. You didn't send me any videos. You came back to me all twisted in knots. I go, shame on you. I am here for you. You post videos in your training space. You would never get in this funk. I would have had you organized before you got in this kind of place where you were thinking of taking up pickleball. Okay, and I don't mean to knock pickleball. I know people like pickleball. But I mean, he says literally he went and bought a pickleball racket. Okay, no, golf, not pickleball, right? So I know some of you out there are going, man, pickleball, Martin, don't knock it until you try it, but please, okay? So once we got this guy kind of organized and we taught him how to kind of move his body, you know, in this event, he started to develop his backswing and his muscles. In order to take this couple pounds of pressure right here and fight this good fight and really feel what that's like, golfers, that's fantastic. Because now your obliques, your deltoids, your arms, you're being an athlete again. Whether you're a new golfer, okay, or a golfer that's getting my age or older, we lose that sensation because guess what? We're looking at a golf ball, but we don't really know what's happening in our periphery. And our muscles are like, you know, I've been on vacation for years. Don't bother me, right? Well, the Playmate goes, you're not on vacation, golfer. You're actually going to get a little bit better here. You're going to learn and feel what it's like to support your arms, your deltoid, or you could do this, but you know that doesn't make any sense. The catchphrase for the Playmate is resist, relax, and rotate. So the resistance phase of address, ooh, there's some resistance. There's a couple pounds of force I've got to use to push the band away from me. Here's resisting. Oh boy, there we go, that's resisting. Here's relaxing. See where that club is going, golfers? If you look on the down line, the club's kind of going behind me. That's the magic shallowing move. That's the plane of glass Ben Hogan used to talk about in his amazing book. That's how a golf club gets behind a golfer, so that when they unwind, the club naturally swings inside out to have a good chance of hitting straighter shots or that draw that so many people covet. And when you have this awareness, this muscular awareness too, think about it. That's not the sloppy, lazy man's backswing. That's structure right there. You're taking away some of those risk factors. You're using the golf club as it's intended. You're managing the shaft, you're managing the face, and you're feeling the weight of it as it relates to you rhythmically and how it plays against the hands. A super big deal. So it was funny, you know, this fella came out to see me and I'm like, man, I'm doing it. I'm putting you in the Playmate, and guess what? I'm leaving you in the Playmate. He came with a buddy. It was kind of a 2-on-1 lesson. It was super hot. It was like 112, 13 degrees yesterday. It was crazy. But the guy was loving this thing. I had him hitting a bunch of little chip shots because you can have it, you know, he had lost his structure around the greens. So even these little guys, this little structure, you know, hitting little chip shots, bumping golf balls onto greens, having the sense of how to move this club in relationship with pivot, very, very helpful for him. So, and you know what's funny is his buddy was there. His buddy didn't need the plane mate, didn't even put it on him. I think his friend wanted to try it just because he was like, saw his buddy doing so well in it, but he didn't need it, so I didn't put it on him. In fact, I'm trying to think. The other guy, I didn't put him in one training aid the whole day. You know, it was interesting. He was a very crisp iron striker, very crisp, 5 handicap golfer. And so I know this show's about irons. He had all the pieces organized. His divots were in the right place. His club path was, you know, very, very predictable. In fact, he had a club path problem. You know what his club path problem was? It was too perfect. His club path was pretty much 0, meaning that the circle of his swing, you guys, and let's talk about club path here. The circle of this fella's swing. So the two guys, one guy playmated the daylights out of because he needed those structural pieces. And then the other fellow that was there had this like perfect club path, meaning that every time he swung this thing, his low point was absolutely money. Okay, so let's talk low point. I know I'm on mats here, but if I was on turf at the Raven hitting shots, you would see I'm not trying to take divots, you guys. Okay, I am letting the circle of my swing, here's this club traveling, I'm letting the circle of this swing collect the ball, brush the mat, right? And that happens slightly on the golf ball and a little bit forward of it before the club comes away from continues the journey of a circle, comes away from the ground and works up, back, and behind me. So those pieces, and again, earlier in this episode, I kind of talk about how we start off with this event of letting our hips, once we turn them, remember that little exercise of getting this club deep in our hip hinge? Turn those hips, let those hips kind of relocate yourself. That's getting you fractionally forward, okay? And I don't want all of you getting forward, just feel like your pelvis gets a little forward as your head stays kind of where it started. Think about the golf ball, you guys, as maybe a left ear ring, you know, something that's just on the lead side of your face, right? So the golf ball, I'm not setting up way ahead of it. It's just a little bit to the left side of my face here, and I don't want you to get too far ahead of it, but I do want you to feel like your pelvis can get a little bit ahead of it. So it's like head stays back, pelvis stays forward. And you'll notice it kind of puts us in this little bit of an axis tilt right here. That's a big deal. You know why it's a big deal? Because a golf club, when we hold it at address, weighs about 2 pounds, right? So we hold this thing, and there's the foundation of our structure on top of our feet. Now, as this starts to develop momentum and speed, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. And if we don't kind of offset where this thing gets its heaviest by having our head still and our pelvis a little bit rotated and forward, that's where we lose our balance. Because as guys get older and gals get older, I start to see this, the momentum pulls them, and next thing you know, whoa, right? They're going to fall over a little bit. Best exercises for you guys out there, the best drills. My favorite place to practice, period. If somebody said, Martin, you know, you got to prepare for a tournament, all you get is 20 balls to practice. 20 balls a day, that's all you get. I'm like, okay. You know where I would find? I'd go to a fairway bunker. Fairway bunker is my favorite place to practice. I'd take this aim stick, I'd drop it in the fairway bunker, I'd tap it with my foot, create a little groove in the sand, and I would line these golf balls just on the target side of that groove. And then I would stand, you know, obviously the stick wouldn't be there, that would be a groove, and the golf balls would be fractionally forward of it. But the beautiful thing about that is, when you're in a fairway bunker, and my preference is a damp one, I like doing it in the morning before all the moisture comes out of the sand, because now you're on a surface that isn't as stable as turf. So now the brain's freaking out again because you're not on something really stable, which is awesome. So you're really hyper aware of your stability, and you have to be massively aware of precision of touching the ball before you hit the granules of sand. Because if you hit any sand before you get to the ball, you get this weak, poofy shot that comes out, and you've done it, I've done it, we don't like it, right? But when I was actually playing quite a bit of golf, my favorite practice was getting in a fairway bunker. Now, here's what I'd tell you. For you iron strikers out there, We always practice on mats. Mats, use the towel like I showed you earlier. Put the towel 4 inches, 5 inches behind the ball. If you're hitting the towel, then you know, okay, you don't have this kind of resettling to the lead side while you unwind, right? If you're touching the towel, But do me a favor. Don't go find the best place on the range to hit golf balls. I mean, go ahead and hit a few from there. Go find the nice bit of turf you can. That's awesome. But we have to practice harder than we play because golf isn't a perfectly flat world. The tee boxes sometimes aren't even flat. Now, let's say you hit a great shot. You're in the middle of the fairway. Well, maybe it's a little subtle slope up to the green. Maybe it's a little downhill to the green. Maybe it's a little, you know, the ball's above your feet. Maybe it's a hanging lie, or maybe the ball's below your feet. You've got to get used to setting up with a golf ball a variety of places. And there's a physical beauty to how people do that. But if you're always going to this flat range or a, you know, like a range mat in some big driving range, like I love Top Golf, but it's just a flat thing and you'll develop a swing, but guess what? You're really not developing your proprioception for those funky little lies that you're going to find on the golf course all that time. So, you know, my favorite drills, kind of wrapping things up here, the cornerstone. You can't do enough cornerstone shots. So the cornerstone drill is really simple. And just do 5 of these, 5 balls at a time. Get a golf ball in front of you. Get your comfortable arms in front of you. You're creating this V of your arms. You can kind of see that. The club's off the ground. Here's this little kind of chest high, 9-3 swing. This event, clipping shots. Right? Hold your finish. I know that ball flew a little to the left. I could feel it before I looked up on the screen. And that wasn't so much a path that was going to the left. The face happened to be a little bit closed. Right? So when the ball goes, wherever the ball goes, it's because that's where the face started it and the path curved it. So that ball started a little left and curved more left because the face was a little bit closed to a pretty good path. But those cornerstones, you guys, I would say do a ton of those cornerstones. Get used to hitting a variety of distances, allowing your club to go past waist high, chest high. Make sure you can get the thing in the middle of the face before you start ramping up to what you consider to be your full speed, okay? Get in a fairway bunker if you can. Trust me, if you hit a couple hundred balls over the next few weeks out of a fairway bunker, you are a better iron striker, I promise you. You're heightening your awareness. You'll be way better at it. Don't try to pick golf balls out of fairway bunkers. When I'm in a fairway bunker, guess what? It's just another 7-iron shot for me. Now I'm a little bit more hyper aware of not potentially hitting it fat, you know, and to do that I could be a little bit more, you know, a little bit more biased into my lead side, so my attack angle is just a fraction more down, and then maybe I clip the ball, but I'm not certainly putting the ball way back in my stance, and I'm not trying to pick it out. I am mindful that I may have a lip in front of me. That's something you have to consider, but learning how to let this club circle down, touch the golf ball in a fairway bunker before you hit granules of sand, and then exiting to a finish, masterful way of developing your skills. Get on any kind of awkward lie you can, you guys, okay? Downhill, uphill. Get on bad turf. Get on bare turf. Challenge yourself. Become someone who accepts what happens to them on a golf course. Don't say, whoa, poor me, I've got a bad lie. Who cares? I love getting bad lies because I know that I have the ability for the club to hit the ball nicely, and it's like, okay, ball's in a divot, I got that. Ball's downhill, no problem. I've prepared myself. Enjoy the beauty of the game. The game throws all kinds of questions at you. I want you to have the answers. I'm here for you. So this is an episode of Modern Golf with Martin Chuck. Thanks so much for watching. I want to thank my sponsors, obviously Nike Golf. Thanks so much for your support. True Spec Golf Club, True Spec Fitting, they do a great job. You need to have a great build, a great fit. Go see the people at TrueSpec, truespec.com. So thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to next week's episode. We're going to have a fun one for you next week. See you next Saturday morning. Oh, hit one. We're going to end with a shot. Look at this. Look, here, you know what we're going to end with? We're going to end with a top shot. Watch this. There we go. Topped it. We'll see you next week. Take care.